a little bit more. Let's just get to see a little bit more of what's happening on the roads here. Of course, just a look at the area around Intercontinental. Seems like the highway looks very clear. Just a bit of traffic towards the roundabout that connects you to Nyayo House and Nairobi. And of course here, let's take a look at Kenyatta Avenue. Of course, a bit of traffic as well coming from the side of Ngong Road and connecting all the way to Kenyatta Avenue around the Nyayo House roundabout there. There's still a little bit of traffic, a bit common again. When you are approaching a roundabout, of course, there's just a slowing of traffic, perhaps to observe the traffic lights as well. And moving away, this should be the road that leads up to Westlands. Doesn't look so bad. Just around the Hotel Boulevard, the roads seem a bit clear, but it seems like there's a bit of traffic when you are connecting from the Nairobi National Museum area going into the CBD. Just light traffic, not too much. Let's look at Parklands area, just where our offices are located. Seems like Ojiji Road is clear, as always. Driving through is usually not so bad, especially in the morning. But like I always mention, when you're coming through and connecting through the roads, especially at 7 a.m., the roads are friendly, very, very friendly. You may want to try and consider leaving the house in case you have meetings in the morning. You may want to leave a little bit early, especially at 7 a.m. Seems like the roads are usually clear. But let's take a look at Moi Avenue. Seems like the roads are clear. Globe roundabout, always synonymous with traffic, but since things have gradually changed, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic and people being urged to stay at home, not too many movement from people, especially those who maybe have cars and not bring out their cars much, because most of them, perhaps most of you, are staying at home. But Globe roundabout looks fairly good. Doesn't look like there's much traffic there, or even any traffic at all. I think traffic is flowing very smoothly, connecting to area of Ngara West Open Air Market. Just around that area, the roads seem to be very clear. Well, let me not take too much time on the roads. I should tell you that the roads seem very friendly today, and you may want to consider, in case you want to leave the house and you want to move around and go perhaps to the office, or just check on what's happening in the office. You may want to leave now because the roads seem a little bit friendlier than usual. I want us to take a look at the People Daily. I know we were trying to get political commentator Areba Omoyo, and I don't know if my director can just tell me if we've been able to get him. Is Areba there? I don't know if you've been able to get Areba Omoyo. Okay, seems like we'll have to do the newspaper review today on my own because we're not able to get Areba. But looking at the front page, it reads, the headline reads, Duale dives straight back into the hole. Basically, this story talking about after being spared the purge during Tuesday's Jubilee Parliamentary Group meeting, chaired by the President Uhuru Kenyatta, majority leaders bragging and ambivalent support for Uhuru Ange's MPs who have now collected more than 100 signatures to impeach him. Seems like his wars are not really over at this moment. This story on page 5. Further to this story, talking about last evening, Kega confirmed that he was leading the ouster petition, saying he had already surpassed his target because he only needed 108 signatures to have Duale impeached. And just quoting quote, he was saying that just further to this story, Duale a perceived bravado and ambivalence over his relationship with the DP immediately after being rescued from the chopping board following the intervention of a senior State House official and a close confidant of the president are likely to be the last straw that broke the camel's back. It will be interesting to see how this story pans out, because for some, they were very sure that Duale would not make it through. But as we see, the National Assembly Majority Leader on Tuesday surprisingly survived the President Uhuru Kenyatta's purge of his deputy William Ruto's allies in Parliament during a meeting at State House. And this may have to mount a second fight for survival. But you know what? Good news. I'm told that Areba Omoyo is online. Hello.
Good morning.
Hi, Areba. How are you doing?
Hi, thank you. How are you?
Fine, thanks. Challenges, you know, we're getting used to these challenges of network. Using Skype is something new for all of us, especially consistently. But I'm glad to have you on the show, all the same.
Thank you so much. I'm shocked that you use Skype. These are things that... Which village do you come?
All right, it seems like the audio here in studio seems to cut a little bit. I can't quite hear you, Areba, but I can tell you kind of can hear me. But I was looking at this story on the front page of the People Daily, but now looking at it further in detail on page 5, the headline reads, "How Duale Shot Himself in the Foot Amid Jubilee Purge." This story, Areba, talking about the National Assembly Majority Leader Aden Duale surprisingly surviving President Uhuru Kenyatta's purge of his deputy William Ruto's allies. Well, you know what? This is an interesting turn of events, because I think many of them, expected that perhaps he would not survive the purge.
I think it can only go 2 ways. There are not 2 ways to it. And some guys expected that Duale would go, and quite a huge number of people expected that also Duale will be saved, if you can use that word. But I think at some point, I don't know what happens in the deliberations, and it was thought it's wise that Duale is not fixed. And then now we've been told there are some guys led by Kanini Kega who are collecting signatures to oust Duale. Probably the question is, what changed that tune? What brought in the new spirit right now? I saw the member of parliament for Nyeri, my good friend, saying that he has changed his hand because if the president saw it fit to have him removed, then who is he to go against the president's views, if you can say so? So I don't know what has motivated Kanini Geiger, or probably he's trying to be visible and also be trying to be seen is among the loyal people and be seen. But for me, I feel that these are chapters that we should think of closing now that the parliamentary group meeting ended. I think now we should just focus on the way forward. I don't think that, again, if those members of parliament who want again to oust Duale, I mean, this again is a cycle of the toxic way of doing things. So I think we should just move on.
You know, one would question, if then he has the support of the president, since he did survive the purge, then why are we seeing a section of leaders then rising again to try and get him ousted? What is the agenda, or what's the motivation?
As I said earlier, is that politics is more about visibility and more about being seen to be more loyal than other people. And my feeling is that probably those who are collecting the signatures right now, they want to stand out as the people who are trying to fight for Jubilee more than other people, and be seen that these are the loyal men and women that we have for the party.
Okay. Well, Areba, let's just move on to another story here. Page 4, there is yet another story. Politics seems to be, it's back to normal. And the headline here is Chungwa Courier de-whipped in Jubilee Purge. Talk about what the story is further talking about, further to the headline. The ruthless purge against Deputy President William Ruto's allies in Parliament by President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is keen, Areba, to restore discipline in the ruling party and have firm grip in House, continued yesterday after he newly appointed National Assembly leaders initiated the process to de-whip legislators considered disloyal from key committees. I mean, this purge is set to bring some major changes, some unexpected. Look at what's happening in Chungwa Courier de-whipped in Jubilee Purge. What do you make of this particular development?
I think this was largely expected, that the moment they would be done with the Senate, they were to move on to the National Assembly. And I remember having a conversation with one of the legislators who has been de-whipped, and he said that they were ready. I mean, they know what they had done, and they know the consequences that were coming. So this was largely expected. Only my issue is that then I hope that the new people, parliamentarians who are going to be given the roles after the 7 days notice has elapsed, I hope then they will take those roles seriously, because I know the likes of Moses Kuria were really competent people, and I'm not saying that whoever is going to be brought in might be incompetent. All I'm saying is that let's hope that they're able to match the skills of the people who they will propose to those committees, so that at the end of the day, and as the president said, at the end of the day, is that what he wants is to push the Jubilee agenda to the people. And hey, I said this a couple of weeks ago. If there is anybody who's standing in the way of having service delivery for the Kenyans, then it's time he steps out.
All right, and you know this story, further talking about more than 20 legislators allied to the deputy president faction have been accused of undermining the president and are now said to be targeted, Areba, for removal from their roles as chairs and vice chairs of key house committees. I mean, a new government, would you say, is being created right now? Entirely a new government, perhaps?
I think you cannot say there is entirely a new government. If you look at the composition of those committees, they're composed by members seconded by political parties. At any given time, and the way that allocation is done, that they look at the interest and the competencies of somebody, then a party forwards members to a committee. And you see, the same powers that a party has to forward members to a committee are the same powers that a party has to whip a member from the committee. You cannot entirely call it a new government, but I'm a bit afraid in terms of the issue of institutional memory. Then we're having a committee where both the chairperson and probably the vice chairperson might be whipped. I've not seen such a case. And then the issue of leadership also comes in terms of how the Jubilee is going to ensure that the leadership of that particular committee is appraised with what was going on before and is consistent with the mandate of that committee. For me, one of the things I'm hoping is that then whatever happens, it will spur and it will push forward the agenda of the government to the people. That is I'm putting that as one of the hopes that we might see.
You know, Areb, I think for some, it has been the question of course, there's been talks about what the president is doing right now is basically instilling discipline. But more than that, some feel that he's deliberately fixing people who will only push for his agendas in parliament. Question would be then, how objective will these agendas be if they look as though they are one-sided?
And that is why I'm arguing that if you listened carefully to the president's speech, recently on Madaraka Day, that is on 1st June, the president did clearly say that for him, he was interested in leaving a legacy for this country. He was interested in ensuring that there was service delivery. And if indeed some of these committee chairpersons and vice chairpersons and some of these parliamentary leaders who have been seen to be allied to the deputy president have not been pushing the Jubilee agenda, number one, you can say that is a wrong move, because then the deputy president is also the second in command in the Jubilee party. Then I don't understand how then you would claim that some of those members are sabotaging the president, yet the deputy president who they are allied or are perceived to be allied to is second in command in the same government. But hey, if then the president, in his wisdom, has felt as the party leader that these very people are sabotaging his agenda, the good agenda for the people, and it's high time that through the party mechanisms, they're changed so that at the end of the day we can have service delivery for the people, then I think it's a good thing that we probably need to look up to. I think we need to look up to more development and more and leadership that is more oriented to the wishes of the people. So probably we should have hope, after all, at the end of the day.
All right. All right, but let's move on to page 7. A story here. The headline reads, Camry traces Kenya corona strain DNA. Talking about a research by the Kenya Medical Research Institute establishing that at least 9 SARS-CoV-2 were imported into the country before March 30th, and that was later transmitted locally. Seems like corona was here with us long before we even realized it, Areba.
Yeah, I mean, from the times then there was a global outbreak, and we had the telltale signs from the World WHO, and we had all those advisories. But for us, we kept our borders open, and we didn't give a damn, because we continued having people fly in without any measures to protect, or rather to quarantine them before those days end. And we're dealing with the repercussions.
And you know, this story talks about the community transmission, which there has been concern that a lot of these cases are resulting from community transmission. Talk about the fact that perhaps we could have done better way before, if then there was already cases in the country that we did not even know about, Areba. What would you say about the government's preparedness and, like you've mentioned, in terms of response to crisis or situations that would likely affect Kenyans?
I think I've said, and I'm record of saying before, that our disaster management and our emergency response is quite wanting. And I hope that with this pandemic, we get to sit down and take stock of our emergency and disaster response, because we spend more time in preparing to respond to the disaster and the emergency, and we forget to the actual response of the disaster and the pandemic. So, I mean, this is an issue we have all raised up, that our level of response is quite wanting. And we probably need now, the reason why it has been wanting is that we have never been faced with such a calamity. And we have been preparing to be faced with, and now we're faced with a calamity. So, it's high time we prepare for our A game for the future. There are some Western countries which had prepared for such calamities, but at the end of the day, they were still taken on their knees. So whereas I agree that this is something new and our emergency response is wanting, but then we also need to give it to the government that we have tried the best we can. But hey, we could have done better from the one go.
Mm-hmm. Well, page 8, further to this story, there's another story related to coronavirus, and the headline here reads, Kenyans back to old habits amid a big recovery leap. I mean, we look like perhaps we're making strides, Reba, but, Kenyans may not be still taking containment measures seriously, at least to maintain the leap that we have already made so far.
I think we're back to normal. The usual traffic jams. If you walk around town, everybody's back to business, and if you walk to restaurants, they're jam-packed. There is a particular club which you find people are so jam-packed, and I think Kenyans are back to normal, which is a bit worrying, because even other countries, even if they're trying to reopen, they still been putting measures so that as they reopen, then they don't have a spike in terms of the infections and in terms of the death rates. So whereas Kenyans are back to normal, we still need to practice the protocols which have been given by the experts. I'm not an expert in that, but I feel that Kenyans, we are taking this too lightly, which is not a good thing.
And talk about Kenyans taking it lightly. There's been a concern among the truck drivers that are being tested at the border point, Areba, and the concern here being the snarl-up that's being created at the border point. Of course, the concern of further transmission, because there are a lot of crowds there of people waiting to get a pass to get across the borders.
Of course, when this issue of trucks came like 2 or 3 weeks ago, one of the issues I raised is that the moment then we crowd the truck drivers in Busia or in Namanga or in whichever border, we are exposing the local community to a risk. Because when these truck drivers are there, they of course have to get to social amenities, they have to get to shops for food and water. If then one of them is a carrier of the disease, then there's a likelihood that it's going to be transmitted and it finds its way into the local community. So yes, I agree that the truckers, wherever they are on the border posts, posing a risk to the communities, whether in Kenya, Uganda, or Tanzania, which are living near the border posts. So again, this is an issue that when we were coming up with measures to deal with this, as the East African community, this is an issue that we could have come up with once and find a solution, so that if we're testing the truckers and the source of where they're picking their goods from, so that if it's Mombasa or another border post or where, so that we reduce the number of drivers that we have congested at the border. Right now, I'm being told at some point that we have truck drivers like the snarl-up of close to 15 or so kilometers, which means all of them are there. So what happens to the local community?
Okay. Page 17. This is our last story. On the front, on the page 17, a headline here reads, "Why working from home could become a daily norm." Further to this story, talking about COVID-19 pandemic would have given a new lifeline to firms eyeing an opportunity, Areba, to cut costs as working from home becomes a new normal. You know, at one point, probably no one would have ever thought that some companies or some employees would be working from home. Ever, it almost looked like it was a luxury for a selected few, but now it's becoming a norm.
Of course, I think the new norm has seen people set up desks at home and have all that is needed for them to be able to work up from home. I know one of my colleagues works for some corporate company who has never left the house or to go to the office. So this new norm will come with its advantages and disadvantages. I think companies are going to realize that there is no need of having people here in the office when they can work from wherever they are. So this is a new normal that we have to deal with.
Interesting. And because of this, this story talks about how multinationals are able now to save up money, especially money that they could have been using in renting spaces. And, you know, I think that for me, the idea is how then do you keep people accountable in terms of meeting their deadlines, meeting their targets? I think that will be the key factor there in terms of now making sure things are still running smoothly for most of the multinationals.
Of course, they're developing systems to ensure that the number of billable hours or the number of hours that you work per day, they're still consistent so that when you were to be in office. So still people are being pushed to meet their deadlines. And you see with such new circumstances, we're getting creative ways of dealing of handling some of these issues. So whereas it's a challenge, but it's an opportunity which multinationals and other companies are trying to explore. You had there some companies which have told their employees they'll never have to go back to the office up to 2021. So they'll have to work remotely from wherever they are. And it's an advantage in one way or another. Sometimes I'm just in the house. I don't have to worry about having meetings in the office because I can get to my desk at home, set up meetings, go online, send documents, they're stamped and such. So, I mean, it's something that we have to be ready and we have to explore. It's something that is, I mean, it's a new normal, as I can say.
All right, Areba Omoyo, thank you so much for making time. Always a pleasure.
Good morning. Have a good day.
You too. Have a good day. Political commentator there, Areba Omoyo, just helping us understand some of the stories making headlines in the dailies today. Right now, I want us to take a short break. When we return, we take a look at other stories that are making headlines, just in case you did not get to know what was happening yesterday. We'll have some of those stories running for you, and of course, the news stories running as well this morning. So don't go too far. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is the Morning Cafe. I want us to take a look at some of the stories that have been making headlines. And now the number of coronavirus infections in the country continues to surge, with the virus making entry into 33 counties so far. Let's get more on this story.
Railways bus station Nairobi, a beehive of activities. Everyone is on the move trying to catch a bus to their destination. Conductors and stage managers calling out for commuters. It is disturbing to see matatu crews disregarding any of the rules laid down to curb the spread of COVID-19. Simply put, it is a blatant show of defiance. Buses are not stopping for commuters. They have to run after them and crowd at the door as they jostle to enter. Everyone is upbeat and ignorance reigns here.
Tangu hii corona ikuje, wale watu wote tunakuanga hapa kwa matatu, hakuna mtu yote amegonjeka, hakuna mtu yote tumesikia ameumia ama amekufa. So sisi tumelindwa na Mwenyezi Mungu. Hii mambo ya corona, sisi hatujui mahali inaelekea na mahali itaishia.
Few people are washing hands at the tank installed at the bus stop, but many people turn a blind eye. The ones having masks are not wearing them properly. They are hanging loosely on their necks. At the Koja bus terminus, the situation is the same. Here, conductors interact with each other freely without giving a thought at social distancing. They admit not to sanitizing their customers or being bothered if they wash their hands or not. Sanitizer is only given to the commuters who asks for it.
Of the customers come with theirs. Wako na zao. Hata saa zile kulikuaga wanasema we don't need that, lakini wako na zao. Hata tukiwabeba wanajisanitize. Na mwenye hana yake. Mahali kama tumetoka Wangige, hiyo ziko.
Mtu anakuja hana shughuli ya kuosha mikono ama nini. Anakuja, anaingia gari, unampeleka bora afike. Saa aniulizi sanitizer ama aniulizi nini. Anakuja, anaingia gari, anaenda.
However, the situation at the Kencom bus terminus is different. As stage managers and conductors call out for commuters, they have sanitizers in hand. Every passenger has to sanitize or wash hands if they prefer to. At least there is order here.
So zingine wewe sijua mtu ametoka wapi, pengine ako na corona, alafu ataambukiza mwenzake. So hiyo ndio kitu tunafanya, tuna sanitize all the time. Hatuwezi kuallow waingie kwa gari bila kusanitize.
Lately, the matatu industry has been blamed as a weak link in the fight against COVID-19, but others are of a different opinion.
At the moment, there is a digestion of the new norm. And the new norm in this factor reflects that we have to change our system of life. And it is now like the mouth is a private part like any other thing, just for the sake of preventing corona and its spread.
As the COVID-19 curve continues to grow exponentially in the country, on the other hand, Kenyans have been discarding measures put in place by the government to contain the spread and infection of coronavirus, especially in the matatu sector. Wangi Maina, TV47, Nairobi.
Well, the country has so far recorded 54 new recoveries of COVID-19, the highest number yet since the announcement of the first recovery case on 1st April. This as Health CAS Dr. Rashid Aman paid tribute to health workers across the country for what he termed diligent and committed healthcare.
The number 54 could mean anything, but to Kenyans today, this is a number that brings with it a glimmer of hope. It is the number of those who in the past 24 hours have recovered from the novel coronavirus. This, the highest tally of recoveries since the country recorded its first victory case over coronavirus on 1st April, taking the total number of recoveries so far to 553.
In our country, I am delighted to inform you that today we have discharged 54 patients who have recovered from coronavirus disease.
On the flip side, however,
we report the testing of 2,112 samples, of which 123 turned positive. 90 of the 123 positive cases over the last 24 hours are male and 33 are female. The youngest is 8 years old and the oldest is 84 years old. We have also sadly lost 3 patients from COVID-19.
Dr. Aman stressing on the need for adherence to containment measures in the fight against COVID-19.
I often see people using mask as a chin guard. The mask is not a chin guard. The mask must be worn properly. We notice people who wear the mask and just cover the mouth. It defeats the purpose.
Meanwhile, snarl-ups within border points could soon be a thing of the past, following the setup of mobile testing centers at Namanga, Maimahiu and Tarbo in Uasin Gishu County.
Now, as the nation today recorded its highest number of recoveries yet, only one message stands out, that coronavirus is not a death sentence, but indeed curable. David Mudhoka, TV47 at Afya House, Nairobi.
Kanini Ikega, that's Kenny Member of Parliament, has started the process of the removal of Aden Duale from the position of the Leader of Majority in the National Assembly. Well, Kanini claims he has collected at least 115 signatures just a day after Duale survived the ongoing Jubilee Purge. This comes at a time when the ruling party has already started the process of removing rebel MPs from the leadership of House committees.
Just a day after the ruling party started axing rebel MPs from the House leadership positions, and the eyes are now on the majority leader Aden Duale, Kieni lawmaker Kanini Ikega now claiming to have at least 115 signatures to oust Duale, who survived the ongoing Jubilee Purge. Duale is said to have survived from being kicked out of the powerful position after aggressive lobbying by MPs and intervention by House Speaker Justin Muturi. Sources from the Tuesday's Jubilee Parliamentary Group in status also indicate that the perception that he had toned down his rhetoric in supporting Deputy President William Ruto played a role saving him from the chopping board. Duale, however, says his removal cannot be subject of speculation by people he says are not appreciating Article 108 of the Constitution, which creates the office.
Every member of our coalition and our party has the capacity, the qualification and the experience to become the leader of majority, to become the deputy leader of majority, to become the majority whip and the deputy whip, and chairs and vice chairs of committee.
The Jubilee Party has already given a section of MPs who have been termed as party rebels 7 days to explain why they should not be dismissed from National Assembly committees. The MPs include Gatundu South Moses Kuria, Joyce Korir, Robert Pukose, and Corneli Serem. Others targeted in the purge include 16 MPs allied to DP Ruto's Tanga. Elizabeth Mutiku, TV47 Nairobi.
Moving on, the ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi might face a coup few days after a section of Luhya leaders claim to take over Fort Kenya from Moses Wetangula. A number of meetings to craft the Luhya way ahead of 2022 taking place behind closed doors. And as the leader Gashomo now reports, the Western region is likely to be among the regions to watch in 2022 polls if the unity will stick.
It's at the home of KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli where the first recent Luhya meeting took place. A meeting that was followed by wrangles and dismissal of Fort Kenya leaders, among them the party leader Moses Wetangula. And if the number is anything to buy, the regions is likely to have more than 3 million registered voters if majority of new voters will turn up to register as voters. The more than 30 leaders who met in Kajiado vowed to make the region be part of the next government and be involved in the current government.
What is now happening is that our two leaders, whom I said I have a lot of respect for them, have panicked because of the 2 meetings we have had without them. And we discussed issues that we tasked Honorable Oparanya, Honorable Eugene and Mzee Atwoli to present to the head of state. We never chose a spokesman, as it's being alleged by the two.
For a while, the region has been voting overwhelmingly for ODM party leader Raila Odinga, even with the vote splits in the region. Raila Odinga has been accused of engineering the ongoing wrangles within Ford Kenya, claims he has dismissed.
So the issue of Kajiado does not arise at all, because we went there, I think it was on Friday, today is Sunday. There's no way you can discuss a meeting in Kajiado and then have a meeting of NEC on a Sunday.
The Luya way now depends on whether the region will be united come 2022. Lydia Gashomo, TV47.
Residents of Narok have surrendered more than 526 pounds and 1,120 arrows to the police as part of measures to restore peace in the area. And people lost their lives. 15 others were actually injured, and more than 20 houses were burnt down a fortnight ago as the Maasai and Kipsigis communities clashed. The illegal weapons were given to Narok South County Deputy County Commissioner, that's Felix Kisalu, at Ololapanki area. Now, Aaron Kipkoech has more details on this story.
The Maasai and Kipsigis communities have been fighting over a lost cow that led to the death of 9 people and injuries on 13 others at Oloruasi and Olposimoru in Narok South and Narok North sub-counties. Narok South Deputy County Commissioner Felix Kisalu lauded the locals for returning the illegal weapons, saying that only police officers are allowed to carry the weapons.
Na leo hii tunafuraha tumepokea nyuta boss 526. Pigeni makofi.
He urged the two communities to return the weapons, saying that some people are still holding on to them at home.
Hata sisi tuko na idadi ya kujua ni nyuta ngapi ziko katika area hii. Kwa hivyo tunasema bado. Kuna wazee wametukujia leo hii, viongozi wa kidini, na wakaomba tuongeze siku.
Residents say they are ready to support the government's case to find lasting peace in the area.
Kwa hivyo nawashukuru serikali ambayo ametusaidia tuleta amani katika hii area yetu, na tunasitu tushikane pamoja ili tuende kasi ya kulima na maendeleo.
Violence between the two communities has been recurring for many years, cattle rustling being one of the main reasons for the fighting.
Watu warevu wanatumia watu waji muisi moja ndio nakuja kusababisha shida kiasi hii, na wewe ajui pahali ambao umetokea. Hiyo ndio sababu bwana DCC.
Aaron Kipkoech, TV47.
Well, Football Kenya Federation President Nick Mwendwa has hit out at the chair of the Sports Disputes Tribunal, John Ohaga, accusing him of crippling the FKFs. Mwendwa has denounced also a consultative forum convened by the tribunal with regard to the upcoming elections, challenging Ohaga to declare his interest in the elections.
John Ohaga's tribunal has continued to interfere with football elections. In fact, I think that tribunal might have an interest that has not said what it is. In December, he pronounced himself. We followed. In March, on March 17th, he pronounced himself. We followed. What is this now? Ohaga is inviting people. A tribunal has become a consultant for FKF elections. I have never seen a court. Inviting people. Waletekezi. I have never seen any court in my life or any tribunal invite watu kuja kuleta vitu.
And while still in the world of sports, a number of sports personalities across the world have joined the bandwagon of those calling for justice for African-American George Floyd, who died in the hands of Minneapolis policeman Chauvin Derrick. And as Julius Juma now tells us, a couple of English clubs kicked off their training sessions by having one knee on the ground in honor of the deceased.
This is the last spot where George Floyd took his last breath and in pain. Here, on this road in Minneapolis, under the callous knee of Chauvin Derrick, an American police officer who has since been sacked and arraigned. Activists and all those aggrieved by his gruesome murder rendering roads in the United States impassable until justice is served for the man who met his death for trying to use a counterfeit $20 bill at a deli. The sports family, which has always been on the forefront in the fight against racism,
the tourism sector, and of course just talk a little bit about the current leadership we have in the country, and not forgetting issues that pertain the maize farmers. So don't go too far. Remember, you can engage us through our social media platforms, that is TV47KE on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. Tell us also where you're writing from, and you can be a part of the discussion today, and of course a part of the larger part of the show. And of course, remember, we have also a lifestyle segment where we'll be talking to youth making a difference, doing a lot of work in the communities. You may want to watch that and just see how innovative the youth have become in the country. So don't go too far. The Morning Cafe will be back shortly. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is the Morning Cafe. Today we want to take a look at some of the stories that have been making headlines. Of course, matters state affairs in this regard, talking about tourism, talking about maize farmers, and of course the current leadership we have in the country. That's the political leadership. We want to understand how these issues are playing into the state of the economy, and of course, as a result, the state of the nation itself. And to discuss some of the things we want to look at today, I have Johnson Derry, who is an economist. Johnson, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Fine, thanks. Good to have you. And of course, we also have Joseph Simeha, who is joining us via Skype, and he is a political strategist. Joseph, as always, it's good to have you on the Morning Cafe.
Good morning, and it's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, we know a lot has happened as far as the impact of coronavirus in the country is concerned. Of course, we've seen the impact trickling down to various sectors. Talk about the agriculture sector, talk about the tourism sector, and of course, a reflection of the current leadership we have, the political leadership. There's a way this has played into the lives of Kenyans and as far as improving their lives is concerned. But I just want us to first begin by a look at the current political leadership we have. I'll start with you, Joseph. Of course, for some Kenyans, the question is, why are you focusing on realignments in government than telling us exactly the way forward for in terms of making sure Kenyans' lives are improved and, of course, Kenyans have food on the table? Joseph, do you think we have misplaced priorities as far as the current political leadership is concerned?
Thank you for that question. I will just remind people that the current political leadership is not new. We've had it since 2013. And if you've observed trends, no one should be surprised. I do not see anything that shocks me or anything that surprises me. So therefore, I actually see consistency. So I think people should just remind themselves that it's not a different leadership from what we've had since 2013. It's the same leadership. So both the things that you credit them for and the things that are disappointing should already be in the experience we've had. We should already by now know from the experience we've had since that 2013 and know what to expect, such that when we see what seems to be misplaced priorities, for example, we shouldn't be surprised at all. We should not be surprised at all. It should not be like we have some new expectation that something miraculous is going to come out that we haven't seen. Some kind of stroke of genius will come out just because we have coronavirus or floods or anything like that. Whereas the people in charge are the same people who have been there since 2013. So no surprises at all.
Johnson, when you look at how politics is playing in the country, one would question then, what's the impact of, the development of the nation and in terms of improving the lives of Kenyans as far as the relationship with politics is concerned, Johnson?
Sorry, just come again. I need to...
Listening to what Joseph is saying, we've had the current leadership since 2013.
Right.
He's saying that we should not be surprised if at all it appears that the politics, the political leadership we have right now may appear to have misplaced priorities. But then the question is then, what impact do these misplaced priorities have on the livelihood of Kenyans?
Even just looking at the existing economic environment, and you're looking at an issue, the issues that bedevil the country today. Again, I'm also not so surprised because I don't think the economic thinking has changed. The economic ideas is just go ahead with what they were doing from, I think, 2013. And for me, that was problematic. I think having an economy that's being driven by government spending as opposed to entrepreneurs was always going to get into trouble at some point. And so when you start to lose sort of credibility with the business community, with the average Kenyan, you typically find leaders falling into damage control, and that's where politics becomes more important as a fallback, plan B because plan A is not working.
You know, Joseph and Johnson, one would imagine that right now, considering the huge number of job losses in the country, the government would perhaps be telling the country or Kenyans what it plans, being a little bit clear on the steps towards protecting Kenyans in terms of making sure that they are not greatly affected in terms of putting food on the table, because we know that some of them, or many of them actually, have lost jobs. Joseph, what do you make of the government's, approach towards addressing the whole issue of job losses in the country?
I personally haven't seen anything. I mean, if there is, maybe it's still in the works. You know, the political leadership and of the country should have focused on the impact of what is going on, what is unfolding, the pandemic, and left the work of public health to public health professionals. But you see, we live in a country where politicians and their lieutenants in government always want to take every moment, whether it's a sad moment or a good moment, in quotes, to shine. And that if you do anything that affects their, in quotes, shining, they shove you out of the way, like has happened among some of our scientists at Cambridge. I'm just citing that example to show you where the focus is. The focus is on limelight, what gives them limelight in the eye of the public, rather than what they ought to do as their duty and responsibility to secure the lives of Kenyans. So they may be doing something, but in my opinion, I don't see it yet. It hasn't come out. Because again, when you are doing things for and on behalf of the people, you communicate it to the people. You make proposals. You make it public. You tell the people this is what government is doing. So beyond what the president announced in the name of tax cuts and adjustments in this and that, which again appeared to be clawed back by the proposed new budget by the Ministry of Finance, I haven't yet actually seen anything solid that people have bought in, that he has sold to people, to Kenyans, and they've bought in so that they support it, because again, they need, in a position of president and or government, you need this buy-in and support of citizens, the ones who are hurting, so that where they need to tighten, they tighten with joy, and they accept what you are proposing with happiness. So that they are the ones who help you to implement it in their interest. So I think it's because of this thing of misplaced priorities. Political leadership almost always, and high-level government officers almost always, focusing more on being in the limelight, wanting to be seen in the limelight, rather than solving the problems that bedevil the people they lead. I see a bit of a disjointed approach. If you want, if and when in a devolved system of government, if and when you want some quick wins with regards to things that you do to cushion people, with regards to local development, you coordinate that with governors, and you ensure that that agenda is implemented jointly between national government and county governments, and you ensure that there's good oversight so that the county government leadership also does exactly what you've agreed. But I do not see that coordination, unfortunately.
Johnson, even as we talk about the current political leadership and the fact that we are looking at the leadership's approach towards handling the impact of COVID-19 in the country, Johnson, would you say there are some areas that have been overlooked as far as, what could help the economy grow, and this in relation to the government's approach towards handling the impact of the pandemic as it is right now?
So there have been some measures that have been taken with regards to spending and taxation. They cut corporate tax to 25%. They did reduce income tax rates. So that may help a bit. That may help, but like my counterpart said, there have been clawbacks, which seems to be sort of shifting, paper shifting, as opposed to doing anything of substance. But if you look at the government's balance sheet or income statement, if you will, then you'll begin to appreciate why they're doing that. They don't have too much fiscal space. They borrow too much. Debt service is taking a bigger and bigger share of revenues that they're collecting. They have gotten into contracts with lenders that really straitjacket them into, that limit their options quite significantly, and all those need to be addressed. I don't think they have the wherewithal to address the problems that have been developed really. And that's why also the response to the impact of COVID has been underwhelming, simply because they don't have the fiscal space to do what exactly they wanted to do, or what others are doing, and in that and because of that, they seem to be falling short. Now they are a prisoner of circumstances. They don't have too much control over what they can do, because they never saved for a rainy day, and that's a problem right there.
Okay. And let's just look deeper into the issues of the state. Let's just move over to the tourism sector and look at Kenya tourism in 2020. We know that the tourism sector has been hard hit, Johnson and Joseph, and we've seen a lot of people losing jobs, and of course talk about the tourism and horticulture foreign exchange earners being greatly affected, with as well as what I've mentioned, major a number of people losing their jobs. Joseph, what would you say is the current state of the Kenya tourism sector as it is right now, in your view, and looking at how things are flowing right now?
Let me, in fact, just pick up from what your other guest has said, which I agree with. I absolutely agree with. Look, what is happening now is a consequence of not only the coronavirus pandemic and crisis, attendant crisis, but a consequence of our dysfunctional system and infrastructure of governance. We are suffering the consequences because we didn't prepare in advance. We lived as if there'll be no shocks tomorrow. You know, you can't manage government or any institution as if there's never going to be any shocks or any surprises or anything like that. You cannot manage like that, but we have sort of mismanaged ours like that. So the tourism sector feels it. First, we begin by saying that, you know, this affects the whole world, the travel industry, the hospitality industry, and all other infrastructure that's on which the tourism sector is anchored has been affected. But when it finds weak institutions, when it finds a very bad culture of, as your other guest says, of not having prepared, not having saved anything that you could use to cushion in times of crisis, then the consequences are as serious as they are now. Whereas everyone and every country will suffer, countries with weak institutions, countries with weak frameworks like ours, without anything that we've saved for a rainy day, will suffer even more than those that have done the better thing in terms of public governance. So we must brace ourselves for much more serious consequences because of the weaknesses in our governance, leadership, and political systems. Those things, unless you get them right, even the thing you're talking about, reviving the economy, there's no magic that is going to work for as long as the bedrock is the same. The bedrock, the faulty bedrock we've had, still remains the same. You bring on top some dream team or this and that or dream idea, I do not think it's going to work.
Well, Johnson, listening to what Joseph has to say, he's saying that there has been and there is rather weaknesses in the government in terms of leadership and, of course, trickling down to the tourism sector. Johnson, when you look at the tourism sector, how it's been faring on, we know last year we had more than 2 million visitors. Of course, the number has dwindled greatly as it is right now. But what would you say are the loopholes we have in the tourism sector that need to be addressed and that were actually even there before we had COVID-19?
The tourism sector has been slow to grow, and I think one of the major criticisms I have for the tourism sector is that they are too dependent on government. I think they should be taking the lead, developing the products that will attract tourists to come. They have also thought there's a pricing problem. If you look at what it costs for guests to come here, as opposed to other countries, what it costs to put them up hotels, you kind of sort of believe I think we're overpriced. I know people who say, when you compare, say, traveling to Thailand, and we're talking about Kenyans here, traveling to Thailand is cheaper and you'll have more bang for buck as opposed to coming to Kenya. Having said that, the tourism sector is always going to be vulnerable to such a shock. There's nothing too much they could have done about it, except maybe saved a little bit more or whatnot. But I don't think there's much that can be done about it. Then I also want to draw attention to in the tourism sector to two types of tourism. So you've got leisure tourism and you've got business travel. So leisure travel obviously will be really impacted. But where I think we could see a quick recovery is business travel, because business needs to be done. The one issue that I have with this government with regards to and it directly impacts the tourism sector is the if I could call it that, the mistreatment of the foreign investor. So I think we've raised taxes on foreign investors, and I think that does nothing to help investment in Kenya, especially at a time when local savings are they're inadequate, or you could argue all-time lows. So I think this was really the wrong time to raise costs on foreign investors, and if they begin to believe that Kenya is no longer an attractive business destination, business travel will fall, and business travel actually does feed leisure travel, because when you find people coming to do the businesses here, they usually take a trip to the Mara or to Diani or whatever, just to take a load off for a few hours or so. So we need to keep all that in mind when we're making government policies.
And we do know, of course, that agricultural exports have also been affected. As much as we're talking about commercial flight suspension and the movement of tourists in and out of the country being affected, we also know agricultural exports have been affected. Joseph, what do you think this has been the impact on the agricultural sector?
Yeah, may I combine that with a very quick comment on the tourism sector? Just a quick last comment, in the sense that if we did the right things for ourselves, we wouldn't even have an entire ministry called Ministry of Tourism. Perhaps we would have some small department dealing with the affairs of tourists. Tourists go to a place because they see something there that pleases them, that they would like to see, that they would like to enjoy, that they would like to experience. So if we developed our country and worked on our environment and worked on our businesses and worked on everything about a human life for ourselves, and we looked around and priced those products, be they in business, be they in leisure, be they in culture, be they in social services, even our environment, and we price ourselves competitively, people will be attracted without us needing to have a ministry called Ministry of Environment. So we always need to look, we should always look beyond the immediate in the name of Ministry of Tourism and see how we as a society are doing and what is costing us and what the opportunity costs that we are losing are. Same concept with agriculture. We shouldn't even be worrying too much about having to export agricultural products, because agriculture is the bedrock of food security. And we have failed ourselves. Even if you removed export, the first thing you need to do is to satisfy the local needs, our needs as national needs, sorry. But look, at us talking about importing maize, whereas you hear maize farmers talking about stocks that are wasting away. Our governance infrastructure is such that it fails the small person. Even when you talk about export, it's mostly of agricultural product. It's mostly of the big international players. Some of them not even Kenyan. So therefore we count this as part of gross domestic product, but is not part of gross national product. The agricultural produce that is by Kenya for Kenya, we have let it down in a big way in favor of big players, because we sort of don't look at agriculture as a business. It is seen as a way of life for peasants, for as long as they are eking and living on their land and managing to scrap a little bits of food here and there. They are not worth paying attention to. We pay attention to the big players in the flour industry, the tea industry, coffee, and so on and so forth. So I think when you do this analysis, you will keep going back to the failure of governance that bedevils every sector of the economy that we have.
Joseph, even as you talk about the failure of governance, proper governance in this case, there has been a perceived corruption in the National Cereals Board, and of course we've seen that there's proposals of reforms in the same board. But before we look at the proposals, I'd like to understand the impact of what has been seen as corruption in the board and how it has affected maize farmers. I want to hear from you, Johnson, on this.
I'm one of those people who believes NCPB probably should not be existing because I think it perpetuates a bad culture. It introduces politics into our agricultural systems. I think agriculture should be practiced the same way we practice other business in other sectors, where producers find their markets and try to serve those markets. One of the things that is a tragedy of say NCPB is that it has consistently been buying products at above market prices to satisfy political, in an attempt to achieve political objectives. And what that has done is that it has hurt the taxpayer more, and as any analysis will tell you, that you're hurting the many to benefit the few. If you look at our agriculture, especially our cereals, you find that we actually produce at costs much higher than global world prices. I'm talking about costs, not local prices. Cost of production is way higher than than global prices. That makes us uncompetitive, of course, because then that feeds into the prices of labor and whatnot. There's a better way to do agriculture, and I think we need to move away from the model we are having right now, where the government is serving it as a market of last resort. It's not even last resort. It's a market. It's a general market, so that we can produce what actually works for us, and we can buy what we need to buy. The idea that we need to be producing everything in this country, I think, is the beginning of error.
Okay. Well, Joseph, as we almost come to a close of this discussion, I know Johnson has mentioned something very pertinent there, talking about the politics that has been playing in the agricultural sector, and in particular, as far as the status of maize farmers is concerned in getting their products before. Of course, you also mentioned that the whole idea of importing of maize, yet we have farmers who actually have maize in the country. Help us understand briefly the politics that has been playing into everything that has to do with maize farmers in the country.
I mean, it's very sad, as the other guest says there, that the culture of politics is about extraction. What it is that one can extract from the economy, from farmers, from traders, from anybody, for their personal benefit, for the benefit of their political establishment or political network, or political fortunes. So those who are charged with the responsibility of making decisions that should facilitate agricultural production instead look at agriculture with the political lens of how it can benefit their political project. That is really just about our bad manners in politics. It's about how we can extract from any situation, even a sad situation of like farmers who are struggling, who can barely even meet their own food requirements. It is about exploitation of the small person. That, unfortunately, is the culture of our politics. Exploit the small person, leave them in a situation where they depend on you as the politician, so that tomorrow you can come back to them with sometimes even their own maize or imported maize and give them as relief food. That is the tragedy of the bad behavior in our politics. That hopefully people should see and use. Given any opportunity to change our governance system, to overhaul our governance and the way we manage our society politically. People just need the solution. The ultimate solution is going to lie on political awareness of citizens to link their sources of livelihoods, the quality of their lives, with politics. The moment they link, then they begin to make the correct decisions. They put in power people who will make decisions or for the interest of the people who have voted them, and people who will be responsive to the needs of the people who have put them in power.
Right. Johnson Derry, economist, thank you so much for making time. Of course, to also come to our studio early in the morning. We do appreciate your time, Johnson.
It's a pleasure.
And of course, Joseph Simeha, always a pleasure as well to have you on the show, political strategist. It is good to hear your thoughts as always. Quite a wealth of knowledge you both are, and we hope to have you again on the Morning Cafe.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. Bye-bye.
Right. Goodbye, Joseph. Well, that has been a look at state of affairs in the country, of course, as far as tourism and the current political leadership and maize farmers is concerned. Of course, this is something we hope to continue as the weeks go by. We'll be having a look at the state of affairs in the country just to help you understand what's going on and, of course, bring to the fore some of the solutions we may need to look at as a country and even as Kenyans to improve the livelihoods of all the Kenyans in the country. Of course, again, remember the Morning Cafe lifestyle segment talking about youth making a difference. We have some gentlemen who will be joining us in studio to tell us a little bit more about what they're doing in their respective communities and the impact they're making. You may want to watch this, and indeed you may also need to stay tuned as we take a short break. We'll be back shortly. Don't go too far. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is the Morning Cafe. We've had quite a good time today talking about different issues that are affecting you and I. But more than that, I want us to engage in the lifestyle segment today. Gentlemen who are indeed making a difference in the society and, of course, in their respective communities and many other communities. And I'll just not say so much about them. Let me just introduce them. We have John Okwako, who is a mission coordinator. John, how are you doing?
I'm fine.
And we are really excited to have you in studio, John. And of course, we have also Meshek Owiti, who is the CEO of Awake Youth Initiative. How are you, Meshek?
I'm good. Hi.
I'm good. So, gentlemen, I know that many people believe that, well, not many, let me not say many, but some people believe that the youth want things easy. But when you look at what you guys are doing, talks a bit about a different picture and a different notion that is being created about the young people. But I want to begin with you, John.
Yeah.
Tell us exactly what you're doing and how you're working with the young people.
Thank you so much. Exactly. I will say that currently we are working with the Life for Life. Life for Life is a youth group that was started way back in 2008. But basically realized that it got shape in 2015 when the young people came together and said that having grown in the slums of Mathare and having grown in the slums of Mathare, what change can I bring in my society? Then we came up with the name Life for Life because we thought it was like if I share my life, could be there is somebody in the slums who shares the same experience that I went through. I could share with him or her what I went through when I was growing up in the slums of Mathare. Then that could be the starting point of change in the slums. And in line with that, I would say that Life for Life is basically, it's a church movement. And through that, we approach our communities through evangelism. And I would say that through doing this, we came up with it's a biblical verse in the book of Isaiah that says, whom shall I send? It's a question posed. Whom shall I send? Then here comes, he says, here I am, Lord, send me. So we are using that as a captivating verse because we are ready to be used by the Lord to send us to go out into our communities and just to share about our lives to bring change into our community.
Meshek, as the CEO of the Awake Youth Initiative, what have you done so far with the youth in various communities?
So just to start with, Awake Youth Initiative was started in 2015 with a vision of transforming youth livelihood and leadership, and more specifically in marginalized communities. So over 2015 till date, we've achieved an impact of 277, working with 277 change leaders. And basically we have three main programs at Awake Youth Initiative. So the first program is Awake Youth Leadership Institute, and what we do at Awake Youth Leadership Institute is to raise transformational leaders. We look at young persons as change makers. But the question is, when you're talking about change makers, what composes of a change maker? What are some of the characteristics of a change maker? So number one, a change maker is somebody that is very passionate about bringing change in his community. But also number two, this is somebody that is very empathetic. And then number three, this is somebody that practices the skills of new leadership. And then number four, this is somebody that is very outstanding in the field in which they operate. So Awake Youth Leadership Institute then prepares young persons to have such values. And then we have Awake Merchandise. So this is a for-profit project within Awake that supports the Awake Youth Leadership Institute. So within the Awake Merchandise, what we do is we sell hoodies, and through these hoodies we raise funds to support the program. And our last program is Awake Changemaker School. So when we talk about Awake Changemaker School, basically we are partnering with a school in Mathare called Millennium Academy. We generally look at starting to shape students or even pupils from the school environment. When we thought about Awake Youth Leadership Institute, we already working with youth outside the school, but we also need to weave in youths who are still, students who are still within the school. Give them the practicality of change making and all that. So basically, those are our three main programs.
And even as we talk about what you're doing in the community and seeing some of the pictures there, seems like you are doing quite a bit, Meshach. And John, I know you've mentioned that you have been working with young people.
Yeah.
And like basically you're talking about you have sent yourself to the young people, you want to make a change. What would you say is the issue when it comes to improving the lives of young people in the country, having worked with them directly?
Okay, I will say that most people don't understand the needs of a young person, because basically realize that young people, basically I will say that those who've grown in the slums, they have been branded as to be, if you see somebody who maybe was not got an education, people think of maybe of prostitution or getting into thuggery or these other social injustices that happen in the community. But you realize that when we stepped out and said that we really want to come and work with the young people, it's because we were once there. We grew up in. We grew up there. Some of us still visit these people there. We listen to the stories, what people always talk about, and therefore we told ourselves, no, we needed to go out and get to see, because I believe there is somebody whom, if I talk to, or if I can just maybe provide a platform and also maybe get friends to come and talk to this person, there could be a very big change in our community, and therefore. That was the push that gave us that momentum to just get to come and see that actually we tap and just like I've mentioned, that this branding and everything is what makes people drift away and get to start engaging into things that they're willing to wish. Like for instance, I would say somebody might decide and get involved into using, let's say, the drugs, because we have a drug dens in Mathare. I will mention that. Maybe let's say people taking, let's say, illicit brew. It is there. It's not out of their wish, but out of the pressure they get from the society around. Because the society, when it looks at the young people, they expect so much from them. But really, these opportunities are not there. So if the opportunities are not there, what am I supposed to do to create these opportunities? So ours is just there to not provide for the opportunities, but to create a platform or an environment enabling for our young people to see every opportunity that comes their way.
John, you mentioned that you've grown up in Mathare slums, and you mentioned numerous challenges there that the youth go through in Mathare slums. How are you able to weather through the challenges and become the person that you are right now? Because I think for some it's also an issue of mindset. Like you've mentioned, how people also perceive you. But how did you rise above all those challenges to become the person that you are today, who is also now a leader driving the agenda of the youth in communities?
Number one, I'll mention about self-drive. All of us having grown in Mathare, we have opportunities, I'll say that. We have different organizations providing education to kids growing up in Mathare. We have, like today, we say that when Kibaki was coming into power, he said education for all. It was free for all. That's an opportunity that the government has created in the slums of Mathare or in the country. So basically, I will say that number one, for me, like I grew up, like I went to school in Mathare. It was a school that was started by the church. It was fully sponsored, primary school. Then when you did your KCP, passed very well, they placed us. The school is Mathare Community Outreach. Let me just mention the school because it's a school that has actually educated very many people within the slums of Mathare. But many of the young people within the slums, they don't see these opportunities. Instead, they take it as it is supposed to be, this is my thing. It's like this person is doing a favor to me to go to school, instead of you seeing that this person taking it as an opportunity for you to go back to school. So my message maybe to what I have done is that I saw this as an opportunity. Then I had a friend of mine who had very good brothers and sisters who went to school in very big schools around the country, who really worked with me. And through his brothers and sisters, we were able to have a peer mentorship. You get that? Whereby whatever he was told by his brothers and sisters who went to school and were in high school, telling him that how school is important, he could bring it back, trickle it back to me. And through that, you realize that I was able to listen to him. I was able also to look at the vices that happen in the community, because I have very many friends of mine who died because of they were killed, maybe they were involved involved into stealing. They died. So I could see that, and I told myself, no, this kind of life is not good. So I said maybe through this education is what I could help me get out of this type of life that we are living through in the slums of Mathare. Then for the ladies, they also realized that prostitution maybe could be the toll of the day in the slums of Mathare. A lady, a young girl, having just grown some breasts, we find people don't take advantage of them. So through that, I will say that we also have ladies within the team who are champions of what we are doing. So there are things that they said, no, this is not the kind of life I'm going to lead, but I'm choosing this to move forward. And as I finish on that, I will say, above all, having grown in a school that was a Christian-based organization, every morning we could wake up, pray, sing Christian songs. They could teach us the Word of God. So above all, the Word of God is what has been keeping us moving and moving forward.
All right.
Yeah.
Meshach, you spoke about transformational leadership. You know, that there has been this perception that the youth cannot make such good leaders. And when I look at both of you and what you're doing in the communities that you have grown up in, what would you say really about leadership, youth leadership in the country, Meshach? Is it possible for us to have youth leaders who can be responsible leaders and objective leaders and agenda steering leaders?
Actually, I want to say that yes, we do have youth leaders who are actually very responsible and those that are leading change. The perception about youth leadership is a narrative that is changing with time. Looking at your guests today in studio, you will realize that that is very true. We do have youths right now who, like I said, have the values of change making, have the values of empathy, you know, people who are youth leaders who understand their background, who understand the context in which they operate, who understand the context of leadership in the country, and they're saying enough is enough. We really need to change this narrative. So youths have begun to get a very different narrative of youth leadership. And yes, the country must now start investing in youth leadership, because these people are not just giving us leadership, they're giving us new skills of leadership. As you can see, the world is fast transforming. The challenges today are not the challenges that we faced yesterday. And the people who are supposed to fight these generational challenges are the youths. And so the youths are very creative in their leadership, and they're coming up with interventions that are very creative. So there is a need to obviously start trusting. And the narrative, again, even from the media, should change from youths cannot do it to youths are actually doing it.
Okay. Let me hear from you, John, about, I like what Meshach is saying, move away from youths cannot do it to youths can actually do it. Yeah. And looking at John and what he has said growing up in the slum, and of course many challenges. You've talked about ladies who have gone into prostitution in Mathare slums, yes. John, because they think this is the only way to make a living. Yeah. But John, what do you think needs to be done to support the youth in the country and possibly help them generate income even as much as they are hoping one day to get a job? I mean, where do they begin, and what kind of support do we need to give to the youth in the country?
So I will say that number one is that create an opportunity. You see, many people think that if I come to you and tell you that I'm going to offer you a job, that is all. No, create an enabling opportunity to our youths. These people have got ideas. Like today I will say, currently as a country we're experiencing COVID-19. I have seen a number of youths who have come out just to share their talents. Like for instance, we have graffitis happening in the society today. Yeah. Who is doing that? They are our youths. What if the government looked into that and said, we are going to at least support a number of people with talents, whichever kind of talent that you have. Like I mentioned, when the president mentioned and said he was going he allocated some money to musicians. Let me put it that way. In as much as yes, they're in the field of art, but it was very much specific to the musicians. But of course, we have different youths with different abilities to do in the society. So number two, I want to talk about I've talked about enabling, creating an opportunity to our youths. Number two, I'll talk about like for instance, let me say that we have youths that are not given a listening ear. For instance, like today.
So basically, we need to listen to the young people.
Yes, we need
and
to
give them
listen
an opportunity to be, to contribute to the development of the nation.
Exactly.
Well, just to hear also finally from you, having heard the final sentiments of John, I want to hear from you, Meshach, as someone who's into transformational leadership. In a nutshell, how do you think the youth can be supported so that they can become active contributors to the growth of the economy?
I think just before answering that, I really want to attach myself to something. I'm also actually born and bred in Mathare, so I'm really familiar with that context. Coming back to your question, I think number one, what we really need to start by changing is the narrative that youths cannot lead. That is the bottom line. Once that is changed, then I think we really need now to tap into our institutions to start bringing programs, creative programs that will help youth think just beyond the classroom, be innovative. And I'll give an example. If you look at the young boy who won the Uzalendo Award, if you look at the creativity behind his thinking, I think that is what we need to start modeling in our institution. And coming back to even our families, we really need to start equipping parents with what change-making skills look like, so that they're able then to support their children back at home. I think that is the basic, that is the bottom line.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for making time, sharing your lives and what you're doing for the young people across the country, and of course, especially in your respective local communities. John Owaka, Mission Coordinator at Life for Life, thank you for making time and coming over. And of course, also Meshach Kowichi, who is the CEO of Awake Youth Initiative. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming over.
Thank you.
Indeed, we've come to the end of the Morning Cafe. Talk about youth making a difference. I hope this conversation has inspired you to think beyond. Listen to what John is saying. Opportunities are everywhere. It just depends on how you see your current circumstance. You can rise above it. And indeed, remember, the conversation does not end here. You can continue engaging us through our social media platforms. That is TV47KE on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you for watching. My name is Leangaria, and as always, join me tomorrow, same time, same place, right here on TV47 for the Morning Cafe. Have a good day and God bless.